We've got cities in North and South Carolina, so those news stations are getting together with their team and they're looking at the reports they've been doing and they're making decisions and then bringing those reports to us, and we're bringing you overall a decision on what the biggest news story of the week is. Of course, we're on Facebook Live, so we're asking everybody here to leave us a comment on what they think the biggest news story of the week is in their area, because we know we have a lot of people joining us on Facebook Live, might not necessarily be from the Charlotte area. So Carolina News Now is a regional newscast. It happens every single Friday at 1 p.m., so you'll be able to watch tomorrow on Friday at 1, and we bring the biggest news stories of the week to you.
So you did have your first newscast last Friday.
We did.
Got to watch a couple of those stories. Very interesting subject matter. So the one that stood out to me first, the one out of Eastern North Carolina, there was a story about a teacher shortage. Even though it's in Eastern North Carolina, that's something that's impacting so many people, not just out there, but across the country.
Yeah, so, and that's, you know, like you said, that's a story that's really has an effect all over the country, and that's something we've certainly been seeing in North Carolina, so we felt like that was an important story to share with people. We know we also had stories of a really fun story right here in Charlotte. We had the Rolling Stones in town last week, so it's a mixture of those stories that are not only really important to you and might be impacting your kids, might be impacting your family, but we also want to keep you up to date on any, you know, potential legal cases out there. We really just want to make sure that we're giving you a variety of stories, and that's what we do at the end of the week for Carolina News Now, streaming at 1. And the beauty of it is you don't have to be at home to watch. So when you think about a newscast, you might actually think, you know, I got to sit down, be at the TV, watch. No, you can watch on your phone, you can watch on your streaming apps. So if you've got the WBTV News Now app or your local app at your news station, you can watch there. And that's really the beauty of it. You can watch and catch up on the go.
So we're talking about how many news stations that are partnering with you, and what's that process like, the editorial process?
So it's 6 news stations. So we have a team of 6 Gray television news stations, and their teams get together and they look at the stories they've done that week, and then we bring them together as one big newscast. So the beauty of this is you have more voices making those decisions, so you have a better array of people deciding what the big story of the week is, and that's something we're asking you right now. We want to know what you think the big story of the week is. We're watching on Facebook Live right here, looking at the comments. So that's a way that you can also be a part of the conversation, is by, if you are not necessarily even in Charlotte, if you have a local news station, you can also let them know, hey, this has been a big story and I've been following it too.
Let's start off by looking at the comment section. I see a lot of you guys are saying hello. We want you to share with us what you think the top story of the week is. That is the premise of Carolina News Now, talking about the big stories in different parts of the Carolinas. I personally, since we are dealing with the Charlotte Metro, I think my favorite, not necessarily the top story of the week, because we've had a lot of breaking news out here, but probably my favorite story is some of the good content coming out of the Charlotte area. So we have the Hornets having their first home game tonight. That's going to be exciting. There are some COVID-19 protocols, though, that we have also been watching closely. Depending on where you're seated, if you're closer to the players' bench, you're going to have to be vaccinated. And there are a couple of other things, guidelines you're going to have to follow closely. How about you?
I'm interested because we have obviously the international airport here, Charlotte Douglas International Airport, and the changes in vaccinations for some airlines that they're making for their staff. I think that's really interesting. It affects a lot of people. We've got a lot of different international airports in different cities across the Carolinas, so I think that's kind of a story that has a lot of grab and a lot of material. It really is going to impact a lot of people, especially especially if you don't travel necessarily. When we're thinking about holidays coming up soon, people might be booking flights to go see people closer to Christmas or Thanksgiving. So I think that's a story that could potentially, you know, land in our newscast. But again, we want to know what people are thinking about and what they think the big story of the week is. But we can guarantee that we will have a wrap of all of them for across the Carolinas tomorrow at 1, streaming for Carolina News Now, streaming on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or on your streaming app. Very easy to do, and look at the top stories.
Yeah, taking a look at the comment section. I'm not seeing any just yet, if you can scroll, but just talking about the vaccine mandates that we're seeing. We actually talked to a lawyer in the News Now desk about that, saying that it's completely legal and that's something that she expects to see more of. She's also anticipating potentially seeing lawsuits in connection with it. People who are not willing to get vaccinated, but also not willing to lose their job. So that's something that we'll be watching closely. Back to the idea of more companies requiring those mandates. Southwest, that was I think earlier this week, I believe it was Wednesday that we were reporting on that, and then now it's American Airlines most recently expediting that deadline as far as when staff need to be vaccinated by.
And see, that's a great example of a story that maybe you didn't get to hear about because you are living somewhere else, and that's the beauty of Carolina News Now. We're taking all of these stories and we're connecting with all of our news stations in the area so that we can bring you the most up-to-date stories that really matter to you in your area. And so we want to just reiterate that you can join us tomorrow at 1. We're streaming live on on Carolina News Now, rather, at 1. We will have a stream for you, and I also want to include that we have weather too, because sometimes as we're thinking, the weekend, we think about catching up on the news stories, but we also want to get you prepared, and especially here in the Charlotte area, we've seen so much rain, so weather is a big topic of conversation, and you can, guarantee to see updates about what to expect across the Carolinas.
Do you have any teasers before we go for those who are interested in tuning in tomorrow at 1 p.m.? Anything that you can share as far as what we can expect with tomorrow's segment?
We do have some investigations going on, I will say that. So I'm in talks right now, and we're of course getting everything ready for everyone tomorrow. We hope that you will join us. Again, last week was our first launch, so this will be our second week of doing Carolina News Now, but we're really excited about the process, and we can't stress enough, this really, was possible because a lot of our different news stations care, and we teamed up and we said, hey, we want to do more and we want to bring you more, so that's what we're doing with Carolina News Now.
Exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I watched the first one last week. Looking forward to catching up on all of the top stories in the Carolinas. Chandler, thank you. Thank you for watching with us and taking the time to comment and sharing. And he says any news that has a happy ending would be the winner. Yes, I agree. Yeah, good news there. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to leave you guys with this live picture of the Uptown Charlotte skyline, and then we will be back on for the noon broadcast.